The day you were born, no one asked who you were. They looked at a body that had never spoken, a mind that had never formed a thought, and they began writing a story on your behalf. They gave you a name before you could reject it, a nationality before you understood borders, a religion before you could question belief, a future before you had experienced a single day of life. Long before you became conscious of yourself, the world had already decided what you meant. Eventually, you accepted the role. You learned to answer when someone called your name. You learned to defend opinions that had been handed to you. You collected memories, ambitions, fears, regrets, and convinced yourself they belonged to someone real. Year after year, another layer was added until the construction felt indistinguishable from your own existence. But have you ever noticed something profoundly unsettling? Almost everything you call yourself has already disappeared. The child you once were is gone. The teenager vanished without a funeral. Every cell in your body has been replaced countless times. Neuroscience suggests that even your memories are not preserved like photographs, but reconstructed every time you remember them. Your beliefs have changed. Your desires have changed. Your voice, your face, your fears, your dreams, none of them stayed. And yet something keeps whispering the same sentence. I am. Who is speaking? For thousands of years, philosophers have tried to answer that question. Few answers are as disturbing as the one found in the oldest layers of Hindu philosophy. Advaita Vedānta doesn't merely question your identity. It questions whether the individual you spend your entire life protecting ever truly existed. Not metaphorically, not poetically, literally. According to this tradition, the person who fears death craves recognition, accumulates achievements, mourns failure, and desperately searches for meaning may be nothing more than a misunderstanding sustained by memory, habit, and attachment. That possibility is difficult to accept because everything in modern life depends on the opposite assumption. Every ambition, every rivalry, every heartbreak, every humiliation, every victory begins with the belief that there is a separate self standing at the center of experience. What if that center was never there? This isn't a comforting philosophy. It doesn't promise that the universe has a special plan for you. It doesn't tell you that your suffering will make sense one day, or that you're secretly destined for greatness. It begins by dismantling the only certainty you've probably never questioned. The certainty that you exist as someone. If that certainty collapses, something far more unsettling emerges. Perhaps death isn't the greatest illusion humanity has ever believed. Perhaps the greatest illusion is the one listening to these words right now. If there is one invisible assumption holding your entire life together, it is the belief that there is someone at the center of every experience. Someone who owns your memories. Someone who thinks your thoughts. Someone who suffers your pain. Someone who will eventually die. You rarely question this because the feeling is immediate. It seems self-evident. Every sentence you speak reinforces it. My body, my childhood, my future, my anxiety, my success. The word "my" appears so naturally that it never occurs to us to investigate the owner hidden behind it. Advaita Vedānta calls this mechanism ahamkara. It is often translated as the ego, but not in the modern psychological sense of arrogance or vanity. Ahamkara is the process through which pure awareness mistakes temporary experiences for a permanent identity. Thoughts arise, and ownership follows. Emotions appear, and they become personality. Memories accumulate, and suddenly they become a life story. A continuous self seems to emerge, even though every piece of it is constantly changing. Look carefully at your own existence. The opinions you defended 10 years ago may embarrass you today. The people you couldn't imagine living without have become strangers. Desires that once consumed your mind have dissolved without explanation. Even your body has quietly replaced most of its cells over the course of your lifetime. Modern psychology adds another unsettling detail. Memory is not a fixed archive, but an active reconstruction. Every recollection is subtly rewritten each time it returns to consciousness. The question becomes difficult to ignore. If the body changes, the personality changes, the beliefs change, and even the memories evolve, what exactly remains identical? Perhaps continuity is not something you discovered. Perhaps it is something your mind manufactures. Human beings are natural storytellers. Faced with millions of disconnected moments, the brain instinctively weaves them into a single narrative, because fragmented experience is unbearable. Order feels safer than uncertainty. Identity feels safer than mystery. The story does not have to be true to become convincing. It only has to be repeated often enough. This is why losing a job can feel like losing yourself. Why aging feels like a personal betrayal. Why criticism hurts far more than sound waves ever should. Every wound strikes a character that has been carefully assembled over decades, defended through habit, and mistaken for something permanent. Advaita does not ask you to destroy that character. It asks a far more uncomfortable question. Before the story began, who was reading it? Human beings spend an extraordinary amount of energy trying to preserve what cannot be preserved. Not just possessions, identities. Every disappointment carries two layers. There is the event itself, and there is the silent conclusion that follows. This happened to me. The first is unavoidable. The second is where suffering begins to grow. According to Advaita Vedānta, this confusion is sustained by Maya, one of the most misunderstood ideas in Hindu philosophy. Maya does not mean that the world is fake, nor does it claim that mountains, oceans, or pain are imaginary. It refers to a distorted way of seeing reality. Like mist covering a landscape, it does not erase what exists. It prevents you from seeing it clearly. Through this veil, everything appears divided. There is you and everyone else, gain and loss, birth and death, success and failure. The mind accepts these distinctions so completely that it begins chasing permanence in a world where permanence has never existed. This is where desire quietly takes control. Not because wanting something is inherently wrong, but because every desire whispers the same promise. Once you obtain this, you will finally feel complete. Yet satisfaction rarely survives the moment it arrives. One achievement gives birth to another ambition. One possession creates the fear of losing it. One fulfilled dream becomes yesterday's normal. The cycle never announces its end. Ancient Hindu texts describe this movement as samsara. In the West, reincarnation is often imagined as a second chance. Advaita presents a darker possibility. Rebirth is not a reward. It is the continuation of a misunderstanding. As long as consciousness identifies with what is temporary, craving continues. As long as craving continues, the wheel keeps turning. You can see echoes of this long before thinking about another lifetime. A successful executive retires and no longer recognizes himself without his title. A parent loses a child and feels as though existence itself has collapsed. An artist loses the ability to create and begins questioning whether life still has meaning. Their pain is real. It deserves compassion. Yet beneath every tragedy lies another fracture, the collapse of an identity that seemed inseparable from life itself. Perhaps this is why attachment is heavier than loss. Loss happens once. Attachment forces you to lose the same thing over and over again, first in fear, then in memory, and finally in reality. So if suffering grows from defending what was never stable, what remains when there is nothing left to defend? If everything you can point to eventually disappears, then perhaps you have been looking for yourself in the wrong place. This is where Advaita Vedānta makes its most radical claim. It does not merely argue that the ego is temporary, It suggests that the individual self has always been a mistaken interpretation of something infinitely deeper. The Upanishads distinguish between two realities. The first is the one your senses constantly report. A world of separate people, separate lives, separate deaths. Everything begins, changes, competes, decays, and eventually vanishes. This is the reality that dominates ordinary experience. The second cannot be seen with the eyes because it is not another object among objects. It is Brahman, the absolute reality, infinite, undivided, without beginning or end. And according to Advaita, the deepest essence of your own awareness, Atman, is not different from Brahman. This is the meaning behind one of Hinduism's most famous declarations, Tat Tvam Asi, you are that. At first, this sounds comforting. It isn't, because this teaching is not elevating your individual existence into something divine. It is dissolving your individuality altogether. Imagine standing on the shore, watching thousands of waves rise and collapse. Each wave appears unique. One is taller, another moves faster. A third crashes against the rocks before reaching the beach. If the waves could think, they would probably compare themselves, envy one another, fear disappearing, and celebrate surviving another moment. Yet every one of them is nothing more than the ocean expressing itself temporarily. The wave never owns the water. It never becomes separate from it. Its birth is simply a change in form. Its death is simply the end of that form. The water remains untouched. The Upanishads offer another image. Picture the empty space inside a clay pot. The pot creates the impression that a portion of space has been isolated from the rest of the universe. Then the pot breaks. Did the space inside escape? Or was it never truly confined? Advaita suggests that the body plays the same role. It gives shape to consciousness without dividing it. Modern neuroscience continues to investigate how conscious experience arises from the brain, but no scientific consensus has fully explained why subjective awareness exists at all. Advaita does not attempt to solve that biological question. Instead, it asks something even more unsettling. What if consciousness is not produced by the individual? What if the individual is produced within consciousness? If this philosophy has survived for thousands of years, why doesn't it feel obvious? Because the greatest illusion is not the world around you. It is the one constantly interpreting it. You don't wake up each morning and consciously decide to become a separate person. The process begins long before deliberate thought. The brain immediately reconstructs yesterday, projects tomorrow, compares itself with others, recalls unfinished desires, anticipates danger, and stitches all of it into a single character. By the time you're fully awake, the story has already resumed. It happens so effortlessly that questioning it feels unnatural. Advaita calls this condition avidya, usually translated as ignorance. The word can be misleading. It has nothing to do with education or intelligence. Someone may master mathematics, philosophy, medicine, or physics, and still remain trapped within the same illusion of individuality. This ignorance is existential. It is mistaking the changing for the unchanging, the temporary for the eternal, the costume for the actor. Perhaps this explains a strange contradiction found in every society. People devote decades trying to become enough. Enough wealth, enough beauty, enough influence, enough knowledge. Yet history is filled with emperors who died terrified, celebrities consumed by addiction, billionaires unable to sleep, and spiritual teachers secretly enslaved by their own image. Achievement changes circumstances. It rarely changes the quiet feeling that something essential is still missing. The ego survives every victory by inventing another condition for fulfillment. This endless pursuit reveals something uncomfortable. The self is never trying to complete life. It is trying to justify its own existence. Death becomes unbearable for the same reason. The body's disappearance is frightening, but what truly horrifies the mind is the collapse of its autobiography. Every relationship, every success, every humiliation, every cherished memory belongs to a narrative that has been carefully defended for decades. The fear is not simply that life will end. It is that the narrator will vanish with it. Advaita offers no comforting compromise. It doesn't strengthen the narrator. It questions whether there was ever one to protect. Maybe that is why the ego resists this philosophy so fiercely. Its survival depends on being believed. The moment you begin observing the one who claims ownership over every thought, every emotion, and every experience, the certainty starts to crack. And perhaps that is the real prison. Not that you are trapped inside a false self, but that you have spent your entire life believing the prison was your home. Most people expect every spiritual path to end with a promise, a higher purpose, eternal happiness, a perfected version of themselves waiting at the end of the journey. Advaita Vedānta refuses to offer any of these. Its final destination is not becoming someone greater. It is discovering that no one was ever making the journey. This is the meaning of moksha, liberation. It is often imagined as reaching another realm or entering a permanent state of bliss after death. Yet Advaita describes something far less dramatic and far more unsettling. Liberation is not an event added to your life. It is the collapse of a misunderstanding that has shaped every moment of it. Nothing new is gained. Something false simply comes to an end. This is why even spirituality can become another expression of the ego. People collect sacred books, meditation techniques, mystical experiences, and religious identities with the same impulse that once drove them toward wealth or status. The object changes, the mechanism remains. The mind quietly says, "Now I am becoming enlightened. Now I am someone extraordinary." Advaita sees the trap immediately. As long as there is someone claiming ownership of awakening, the illusion has merely changed clothes. The Bhagavad Gita points toward a different way of living. Action does not disappear. You still work, love, grieve, create, raise children, care for others, and fulfill your responsibilities. The difference lies beneath the action itself. Life is no longer used to prove that you deserve to exist. Success stops inflating you. Failure loses much of its power to define you. Both become temporary movements within a reality that is already complete. The world continues exactly as before. The attachment slowly weakens. Perhaps this is why Advaita has often been misunderstood as pessimistic. It strips away nearly every illusion people depend on for psychological comfort. Yet what remains is not despair. It is an unfamiliar kind of silence. The silence that appears when there is no longer a separate self, demanding certainty from an uncertain world. Death still arrives. Bodies still age. People you love will still leave. Nothing in existence makes an exception for your hopes. But fear begins to loosen its grip because fear has always depended on protecting something fragile, something temporary, something imagined. The deepest claim of Hindu philosophy was never that you would live forever. It is that the one desperately trying to survive was never what you truly were. And perhaps that is the most unsettling freedom a human being can ever encounter. If this video gave you something to think about, you've already supported this channel simply by watching, sharing, and being here. That means more than you probably realize. If you'd like to go one step further, consider becoming a member. You'll unlock 100+ exclusive videos exploring philosophy, psychology, spirituality, and the darkest questions about human existence in far greater depth. And if this video truly resonated with you, leaving a super thanks is one of the most direct ways to help keep these conversations alive. Thank you for watching. Your time is already a gift.